Pakistan was born as a secular state. Quaid-e-Azam never used the word Islamic Republic. Never.
The foundation of Pakistan is Islamic.
हमारा पाकिस्तान जो बना था वो तो इस्लामी निज़ाम के लिए बना था. जब ये पाकिस्तान बन गया और इस्लामी निज़ाम अगर उसी वक्त नाफिज कर दिया जाता तो यहाँ मसाइल न बनते.
जिहाद के लिए उठ खड़ी हो. आप सब तैयार हैं? इंशाअल्लाह.
Pakistan appeared as a newly named nation in the political map of the world in 1947. But in the atlas of human civilization, the region has a very long and colorful history. Recently, French archaeologists working in Mehergarh, a remote area in Balochistan, Pakistan's largest province, excavated sites of Neolithic age human habitation dating from 7000 BC.
अब हम जा रहे हैं मेहरगढ़. मेहरगढ़ का मतलब है मोहब्बतों का सरजमीन, मोहब्बतों का वतन, लैंड ऑफ लव. मेहरगढ़ की शिनाख्त पूरी दुनिया में उसके 9000 साल पुराने आसार कदीमा की वजह से है. ये बलूचिस्तान का एक कौमी और कीमती वर्सा और असासा है. बेसिकली ये इलाका बलूचिस्तान के ज़िले कच्ची का इलाका है.
This discovery takes us further back in time from Indus River Valley sites, which were first discovered in the 19th century by British archaeologists. At Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, ample evidences of advanced urban civilization that thrived around 3000 BC revealed that the Indus Valley was the largest of the four ancient civilizations in Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. Shortly after its emergence in Arabia, Islam arrived in India in the trail of Arab war hero Muhammad bin Qasim's conquest of Sindh. In 712 AD, he built a fort at Banbhor on the shore of the Arabian Sea near the modern-day city of Karachi and established the first mosques of India. Bin Qasim defeated King Dahir of Sindh and is credited with introducing Islam to India. Later, Muslim religious men, now referred to as Sufi saints, took their peaceful teachings to the local people of the Indus River Valley and elsewhere. In the land that comprises the present-day Pakistan, Islam's introduction was mostly through the Sufi saints. The practice of religion that these Sufis initiated was pure and simple Islam, and yet in line with local customs and culture. There was hardly any harsh rejection of or conflict with the neighboring faiths of Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, or Christians. In fact, one notices elements of amity and humanity that enriched the spiritual messages of these Sufi masters. The shrines of these Sufi saints litter the countryside and continue to spread the spiritual messages to their flocks to this day. In Thatta, in the province of Sindh, we spoke to the Khadim, Jummah Khalifa, at the Sufi master Sheikh Ali Baba's shrine.
तो ये तो मतलब जगह साईं का साल का चलेगा जगह पर नहीं जगह आदमी जगह 10 दिन बैठेगा वो आएगा गाना गाए बजाएगा.
This rich, millennium-old tradition of Sufi Islam in Pakistan has been under attack in recent decades by an intolerant creed of Islam known as Wahhabism, imported from Saudi Arabia, which brutally transformed Pakistan by a streak of Islamic fundamentalism. Usurpation of power, murder of political opponents, and robbing people of their democratic and civil rights were all done in the name of upholding Islam.
In the modern day, we have many Muslim states. They are nation states. Now, the concept or the theory which has been developed by Ikhwanul Muslimin in Egypt and Maulana Maududi in Pakistan, the theory is known as the New Jahiliyyah.
One of the most prominent Islamic political ideology of the time became that of Jamaat-e-Islami Party, which was formed in 1941 by Abul Ala Maududi of Lahore. Through his prolific writings, which were disseminated throughout the world by the Saudi Arabian authorities, we talked to Maulana Maududi's son at their residence in Lahore.
तो उस ज़माने मौलाना अब्दुल कलाम आज़ाद भी आया करते थे वहाँ, बाद में भी आते रहे. तो मौलाना ने उनसे ये कहा कि मैंने सुना है कि तुम जमात बनाने का इरादा है तुम्हारा. कहा जो उसका दस्तूर है वो मुझे दिखाना. चुनांचे वालिद हमारे कहते हैं कि मैंने उन्हें जमात का दस्तूर दिया. तो उन्होंने कहा अच्छा कल इस पर बात करेंगे. तो दूसरे दिन उन्होंने कहा कि इस दस्तूर के नतीजे में जो जमात वजूद में आएगी वो एक फाशिस्ट तंजीम होगी. और उन्होंने कहा कि मेरी राय ये है कि तुम ये सब काम छोड़ दो, ये बेकार है, इसमें कुछ नहीं रखा, मैंने सब कुछ करके देख लिया है. सांप बिच्छू एक जगह जमा हो सकते हैं, मजहबी तबकात एक जगह जमा नहीं हो सकते. मजहबी लोगों को जमा करके कुछ नहीं किया जा सकता.
Maulana Maududi and the Ikhwanul Muslimin have used identical words. The Muslim party is obliged to overtake the rest of the world in order to reform them. This is a party of reformers. We have to carry the message forward. If necessary, we will carry it by sword.
In 1947, on the eve of the departure of British colonial administration of India, a handful of Muslim League politicians, under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, insisted on a separate homeland for India's Muslims, based on the theory that Hindus and Muslims are two separate nations, even though Jinnah was personally a non-communal and secular man. Jinnah's secularism irked Maududi, and he became a fierce critic of Pakistan's founding.
हमने पाकिस्तान की मुखालफत की, हमने से ना पाकिस्तान हमारे वालिद ने ना पाकिस्तान का. और जिन्ना साहब से कहा कि जो साहब अपने जिस्म पर 6 फुट जिस्म पर दीन नाफिज नहीं कर सकते वो मुल्क पर क्या करेंगे. लेकिन उसके बाद पाकिस्तान बनने के बाद हमने कहा कि नहीं जनाब, पाकिस्तान तो बनाया ही हमने, हम असल में इकबाल जिन्ना साहब और मौलाना मौदूदी ये असल में हैं उसके.
Jinnah expressed his vision of Pakistan as a modern, democratic, secular state. But his dream of a secular Pakistan died with his own untimely demise in 1948.
I'm standing in front of the residence of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah here in Karachi. He wanted Pakistan to be a country where religion or faith would be a very private affair.
The Islamic ideology was never heard of during the entire Pakistan movement. Maududi invented a new word. He said, now we are going to have an Islamic state. What is an Islamic state? When Maududi Sahib and other ulama of Pakistan were examined in the Munir Inquiry Tribunal, they could not define what is an Islamic state. But all of them were unanimous that if a state is to be formed according to the declaration of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah of the 11th August, where he said the state has nothing to do with your religion. You may be a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian. You may go to your temple or your mosque or your church. State has nothing to do with that. All of them said unanimously, if a state is formed on that line, we do not accept it.
This is the rise of Islamic militancy has something to do with the with the two-nation theory itself.
Pakistan was made on two-nation theory. So what do you expect from what would come out of two nations theory?
The demand for a separate state was made on the basis of, or for a community which identified itself by religion.
First time in 1956, they used the word Islamic Republic of Pakistan in the first constitution of 1956, which could not last for more than a couple of years. This was I call it in Urdu and maybe in Arabic, munafqat. You are using religion for your personal political objects.
In Pakistan today, consideration of religion dominates almost every aspect of politics and even civic laws. As a consequence, there are murders, mayhem and terrorism in the name of Islam, and violent jihadist skirmishes are conducted both within and outside the borders of the country. Pakistan's national security is at stake, and even preserving its sovereignty is in jeopardy. And so are its social fabric, multiple cultural identities, and traditional human values.
पाकिस्तान बनते ही यहाँ कुछ ऐसा तबका इस पर छा गया जिसने इस्लामी निज़ाम के आने को हमेशा रोका, और उसी वजह से एहसास महरूमियत पैदा होने लगी, और मुख्तलिफ़ इलाक़ों में वो एहसास महरूमियत पैदा हुई कि उन लोगों को हुकूक़ ना मिले, और हमारा एक बहुत प्यारा हिस्सा मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान हमसे अलहदा हुआ और वो बांग्लादेश बन गया.
The people of Bangladesh did not swallow the oppression and misrule of Pakistani military dictators in the name of Islam. With the democratic rights of the people rejected by the army junta, the breakup of Pakistan and the emergence of a democratic secular Bangladesh became inevitable through a bloody war of aggression. In the period of 9 months of the War of Liberation in 1971, the Pakistani military and their local collaborators, the Jamaat-e-Islami of Bangladesh, managed to mass murder 3 million people, rape 200,000 women, force 10 million people to leave their homeland, and conduct other crimes against humanity, all for the sake of Islam and keeping Pakistan intact. Today, many conscientious Pakistani citizens contend that committing genocide in the name of Islam in 1971 has encouraged terrorism and anarchy in the name of religion in Pakistan's political landscape.
If we analyze the history of extremism in Pakistan, we must start from 71. When Pakistan Army created Al-Badr and Al-Shams in the name of Islam. So the Al-Badr and Al-Shams was used by the Pakistan Army against Awami League and other pro-independence parties, and they were used in the name of Islam. So that was the beginning.
What happened after the fall of Dhaka? Bhutto was the first man who declared minority, a Muslim community, in the name of Qadiani. Secondly, at that time he started patronizing Maulvis in Afghanistan.
In 1973, Mr. Bhutto hosted some Islamist professors and students of Kabul University who had fled, fearing for their lives when Sardar Dawood's coup took place in Afghanistan. And some names I'll mention, and that will immediately make it clear to you. Professor Rabbani, Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, Ahmad Shah Massoud, they all came here. And they were taken under the wing of Nasirullah Babar and the ISI. And Mr. Bhutto's orders were to equip, train, finance them, and that is the embryonic beginnings of the Mujahideen struggle in Afghanistan.
Before 71, in our textbooks, Hindu was not enemy of the nation. After 72, we discovered an enemy in our textbooks, and we started poisoning the minds of children with that change. That was most dangerous thing which started by the regime of Bhutto Sahab. Then Islamization. To declare Ahmadis non-Muslim was another thing.
Maximum rise of militancy and religious fanaticism in Pakistan started from the era of General Zia-ul-Haq.
His aggressive Islamization was inspired by the Saudi money and by Saudi philosophy. And I think there was a collusion at that time between Zia-ul-Haq's regime and the Saudi establishment to ensure that Pakistan became not just a Muslim state, but a Sunni Muslim state.
When the government of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was toppled in 1977 by General Zia-ul-Haq, Jamaat-e-Islami joined the government of General Zia-ul-Haq. There were two ministers of Jamaat-e-Islami.
Wahhabi, Salafi, Saudi Arabian Islam being forced and rammed down our throats since the time of General Zia-ul-Haq, 1977 to 1988. He had no political legitimacy, he had no credibility, he had no constituency, he was an illegal usurper as a military dictator.
And during the Zia-ul-Haq period, concerted effort was made to introduce Jamaat Islamic cadres into the Pakistan army. And that has sometimes, some people think that that has also got into the mindset of the Pakistan army. Some of the young officers have started thinking in terms of jihad.
It was the Mullah military alliance. But that was not just to retain control and power over the government of Pakistan and over the state institutions, such as the parliament and the judiciary, and of course he was the executive, so he had control over everything. The media was totally muzzled. There was total censorship of the press and an absolute absence of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly and freedom of speech and freedom of everything. But he also passed laws. He passed the Hudud ordinances, Qisas and Diyat, evidence. He made the federal Shariat court, the blasphemy laws. He so-called Islamized Pakistan.
Of course, with Zia-ul-Haq's so-called Islamic laws that he brought in, which were so anti-woman, which were so anti-culture. I mean, the two victims of Zia-ul-Haq's policies, I feel, were women and culture. Because he banned classical dancing on stage by women. And this is now 81, 82, 83. One could not perform on stage without getting an NOC, a no objection certificate. And every time one got that, one had to actually say that one is not going to be wearing the ghungroos, the bell, ankle bells, and dancing.
Pakistan may be the only state he promoted militancy in their own land. I never heard, maybe I don't know very close history of Africa. Otherwise, I never heard that a state is developing itself, terrorism and militancy. This is not only, for me, this is not only ISI. This is the army, which have created this militancy aligned with the CIA.
जब रशिया यहाँ आया अफ़गानिस्तान में, तो अमेरिका ने इन्हीं लोगों को इस्तेमाल किया. ये उसामा उन्हीं के लायवल था. उसामा अमेरिकन स्पॉन्सर्ड था ना, अमेरिका ही लेके आया था ना। और ये सारे मौलवी भी उन्हीं के। ये जिहाद अफ़गानिस्तान का जब किस्सा था, चुनाचे जिहाद अफ़गानिस्तान जब ख़त्म हुआ तो उसके बाद मियाँ तुफ़ैल का ये इंटरव्यू छपा हुआ मौजूद है, जो अमीर जमात थे, कि जी हमें पता भी नहीं लगा और हम अमेरिका के हाथों इस्तेमाल होते रहे। यानी ये इतने ही नादान थे कि इन्हें पता ही नहीं लगा अमेरिका के हाथों। बात यह है कि उन वहाँ से डॉलर जो आते थे वो आपका मुंह बंद किए हुए थे और आंखें बंद किए हुए थे, और क्या था।
When we were having this Afghan war or Afghan jihad, that is the fight between the so-called socialism and the free world, the Jamaat Islami was siding with the Americans here in this part of the world to bleed the Russians. They were welcoming all sorts of jihadis from entire world. They were getting a lot of direct and indirect funds from militants from Pakistan and abroad and other countries.
Jamaat Islami primarily has been a religious oriented party in the sense that it wants to reform politics through the means of religion, and therefore has had some connection with those extremist groups which neither recognize democracy nor recognize liberal secular political systems, and basically want to create a militant Islamic state.
मियाँ तुफ़ैल के बाद जो अमीर जमात बने थे काजी हुसैन अहमद, ये सवात में लेक्चरर थे जोग्राफ़ी के, सोडमी के इल्ज़ाम में वहाँ से निकले थे। एक लड़के के साथ ज़्यादती करने के इल्ज़ाम में, सोडमी के इल्ज़ाम में निकले थे और 2 दफ़ा पागल खाने में एडमिट रहे। ये ऑन रिकॉर्ड बात है, कुछ ढकी छुपी नहीं। बल्कि उस ज़माने में, जिस ज़माने मुशर्रफ था, तो मैंने ये अखबार में ये एक इंटरव्यू में कहा था कि ये 2 दफ़ा पागल खाने में रहा। उसके बाद मुशर्रफ ने मुझे फ़ोन करके पूछा कि भाई तुमने ये बात कही कि, मैंने कहा जी पागल खाने से रिकॉर्ड निकलवा लो तुम, उसमें मेरे से क्या पूछ रहे हो तुम, उससे निकलवा लो। तो निकलवा के देखा। फिर एक मीटिंग में काजी साहब ने कुछ बकबक की तो उसने कहा मैं तुम्हें वापस पागल खाने में दाखिल करा दूँगा, ज़्यादा बकबक की। ये चुप हो गया बिल्कुल खामोश। ये सारे बद किरदार लोग हैं, सिर्फ मज़हब का लिबादा इन्होंने इसलिए ओढ़ रखा है कि लोगों लूट मार के पर्दा डालने के लिए।
In Pakistan, it's a menace. Your Jamaat Islami in Bangladesh has been controlled by Lahore. Most of the Al-Qaeda terrorists have been caught in Pakistan, have been given refuge by Jamaat Islami. Sheikh Khalid Muhammad is one example. Daniel Pearl was beheaded in a house by a Jamaat Islami member named Maiman. And Maiman was, of course, a reputed Jamaat Islami member whose house was used, and he provided shelters. So Hizbul Mujahideen al-Alami, they carried out bombings in Pakistan on Shia shrines and killed foreigners and all. It was the B team of Jamaat Islami.
कि हमारे वालिद ने इस्लामी जमीयत तलबा बनाई, जमात इस्लामी बनाई, लेकिन हम 9 बहन भाई, हम में से कोई आदमी ना इस्लामी जमीयत तलबा ना जमात इस्लामी कभी ना इसके कभी पास गए, ना मुत्तफ़िक़ है, ना रुकन है, ना बल्कि कभी अगर जलसे जुलूस में हम कभी दूर से नज़र आ गए तो ऊपर से उन्होंने देखा उसे, तो उन्होंने हमसे पूछा कि तुम्हारा क्या काम था वहाँ, तुम क्यों वहाँ गए। उन्होंने बिल्कुल हमें अलग रखा, बिल्कुल ऐसे ही अलग रखा जैसे कोई ड्रग पैडलर होता है, वो अपनी पुड़ियाँ जो है बाहर ही छुपा के रखता है, वो अपने घर नहीं लाता। हमारे वालिद ने ये सारे नज़रियात, ये सारी फ़िक्र, ये सारी चीज़ें जो है इन्हें बाहर रखा अपने घर से बाहर। घर में उन्होंने कभी हम लोगों इंग्लिश स्कूल से पढ़ते रहे, हमने तमाम किया, हमें उन्होंने कभी न जमात न जमीयत न कुछ, और हमने अब कभी जमीयत का साथ भी नहीं दिया। स्कूलों, कॉलेजों, यूनिवर्सिटियों में कभी जमीयत का साथ नहीं दिया, ना हमें कभी इनको अच्छा समझा, इसलिए कि हम इन घर में इनके सारे मुजाहिरे देख चुके थे, इनकी गुंडागर्दी, बदमाशी सारी।
The government has used Jamaat Islami in Pakistan either to gain influence in a foreign country, Bangladesh being an example, and in Pakistan. The Bali bomber was trained and everything, and it's now proved that it's one. Umar Patik was caught, one of the Bali bomber mastermind was caught from Ahmedabad, was actually a Jamaat Islami member.
Zia-ul-Haq की अजीब आमलियत, वो उसने मतलब मज़हब को यूज़ किया, इस्लाम को यूज़ किया, जहाँ के लोगों को यूज़ कर, उसमें फ़ंड आया बहुत सऊदी अरब से। उस वक्त हमारा अमेरिका भी बहुत खुश था कि कोई यहाँ पे एक ईविल आया है, सुविच ने उसको मारना है, तो इन्होंने सारों ने मिलजुल के एक बहुत बड़ा लिथल बम बनाया जिसमें इंटरनेशनल कंसेंसस था, जो कि मार्गरेट थैचर जैसे लोग कहते थे कि कमाल कर दिया है गुलबदीन हिकमतयार ने। वहाँ पे कैपिटलिज्म कह रहा था अमेरिका का कि कैपिटलिज्म को बचाना है तो जहादियों को फंड देना है, और ज़िया-उल-हक उनकी डार्लिंग थी, और वो जो शेख मुजीब को मार के बैठे थे वो भी यहाँ आके पनाहे लेते थे। उस वक्त हम बहुत बड़े, दुनिया के बहुत बड़े माने हुए और ठप्पा लगाया हुआ, सर्टिफाइड स्टैंप लगाया हुआ, उसमें हमारा सूफीज़म मरा।
We travelled to Hazar Khwani, 25 kilometers from Peshawar, to visit the shrine of the Sufi saint Rahman Baba, which was targeted by the militant Islamic extremists. In 2009, on the 5th of March, militant terrorists attacked this 300-year-old shrine, destroying parts of it. The shrine has been repaired and renovated in the 3 years since the attack and is functioning as before as a maktab or Quranic school for children. It has become the center of attraction for the devotees coming from far and nearby villages. We spoke to the khadim of the shrine.
उस वक्त सुबसरत के जो हालात थे उसके पेश नज़र तकरीबन पूरे पाकिस्तान में दहशतगर्दी की एक लहर शुरू थी, और अक्सर कुछ इस तरह अनासिर भी थे जो औलिया किराम के दुश्मन थे। बाबा अब्दुर्रहमान बाबा एक तो सूफी शायर हैं, और इसका तकरीबन कुछ 300 साल से उनका यहाँ ये मज़ार है। पहले भी ये मज़ार इसी तरह बनाया हुआ था हुकूमत पाकिस्तान ने।
We listened to the devotional songs in the local traditional tune dedicated to Rahman Baba, who was himself a well-known composer. In Pakistan, there are two kinds of Sufis, the red kind and the green kind. The reds are anti-establishment, whereas the greens are willing to stick to established conventions, which oppose the Wahhabi outlook of complete surrender to the abstract one.
Militants were against all sorts of Sufis who were not towing the line of Wahhabi Islam, and they attacked all shrines irrespective of the schools of Sufism, be that Chishtiya or Naqshbandiya or Qadriya, and they were more having a strict code of Wahhabi Islam.
The Wahhabism, as you say, they call themselves Salafis here. And the Pakistani Salafis are not aggressive, not at all. They have no history of committing crimes, etc. But it was the people who came from Saudi Arabia and from the Middle East who were given to this kind of a creed. And they came during the Afghan Jihad against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. And they tried to spread their own. So some of our areas were affected by their ideology and their interpretation of Islam. But these people that Hafiz Saeed, etc., or Lashkar-e-Taiba as it was called, they are not militants per se. I mean, they are not within the society, they don't create any trouble.
यूनिवर्सिटियों में मैंने पढ़ाया है और बाहर की यूनिवर्सिटियों में मैंने लेक्चर्स दिए हैं। इसी तरीके से फिर ये सियासत का मैदान भी हमने इख्तियार किया है, दीन और दावत का मैदान भी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हमने अपनाया है। तो ये सारे मैदान हमारे लिए इकट्ठे मैदान है, हम इनको जुदा जुदा नहीं समझते। हम दीन और सियासत को अलग अलग नहीं करते, हम इकट्ठा चला रहे हैं।
Wahhabism is planted here by the establishment, the army of Pakistan, and it was properly then taken care of while it was in its nursery stage. So as far as the growth of Wahhabism is concerned, it's not natural, it's not something that belonged to the ground, to something that belonged to the land, it's imported. So that's how I believe it, and sort of grown into Pakistan the way it has.
Wahhabism also suited perfectly to the idea of war. It's dry, it doesn't believe in rituals, and it doesn't connect with elders and history and civilization.
Now these terrorists have started attacks on shrines, Sufi shrines. There are 5 attacks in last 2 years, 5 to 6 attacks. Why they are attacking? Because they know the strength and power of Sufis, and shrine is not some piri muridi sort of thing. It is an institution where all are equal.
They not only have destroyed Muslim shrines, they have also destroyed Buddhist shrines, monasteries, and mandir, temples, and churches too.
ਨਾਮ ਮੋਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਸੀਤਾਂ, ਨਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਫਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਰੀਤਾਂ, ਨਾ ਮੂਸਾ ਨਾ ਫਿਰਊਨ ਕੀ ਜਾਨਾ ਮੈਂ कौन बुलया की जाना मैं कौन। अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाह।
This is the Lal Masjid, or the Red Mosque in Islamabad. It was turned into a veritable fort by the Islamic militants as they declared an armed jihad against the government of General Musharraf in 2007. The Lal Masjid and its affiliated Jamia Hafsa Madarsa were illegally constructed on public land, and in the ugly struggle to rescue the area from the illegal occupation, more than 100 militants lost their lives, the majority of whom were the female students of the madarsa. The Islamic militant leaders, in their so-called jihad against the government, used the girls from the madarsa as human shields. In that terrifying holdout of Lal Masjid from 3rd to 11th July in 2007, 2 brothers, Maulana Abdul Aziz and Maulana Abdul Rashid Ghazi, acted as leaders of the militants. The younger brother, Abdul Rashid Ghazi, was killed in the scuffle, or jihad, and Abdul Aziz was arrested. A young son of Abdul Aziz was also killed in the Lal Masjid jihad. Maulana Abdul Aziz spoke to us.
आज तक इस्लामाबाद जो हमारा जहाँ आप बैठे हैं, यहाँ मदारिस के लिए कोई ला मौजूद नहीं है कि मदारिस को ज़मीन दी जाएगी, कोई ला नहीं है। यानी आप 1 करोड़ रुपया भी दें, 10 करोड़ भी दे सकें, तो आप इस शहर में इस्लामाबाद में मदरसे के लिए ज़मीन नहीं ख़रीद सकते, दीनी काम के लिए। आप सिनेमा के लिए ख़रीद सकते हैं, कोई और चीज़ के लिए ख़रीद सकते हैं, लेकिन इस्लाम के लिए कुछ नहीं। इसका नतीजा ये हुआ कि अब मदारिस की ज़रूरत तो थी, उलमा ने यह किया कि जहाँ किसी जगह पर भी जगह मौजूद थी मस्जिद के तहत, तो वहाँ नज़रिया ज़रूरत के तहत मदारिस बनाए और मसाजिद भी बनाई। आखिर मसाजिद तो बनानी थी, और इस तरह बहुत सारी मसाजिद भी बन गई और मदारसे भी बने, लेकिन वो गैर कानूनी करार पाए।
Lal Masjid was established on an encroached land. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Okay, you have a masjid, but that doesn't mean that you will turn it into a madrasa and then you will turn it into an armed fortress. And then you will teach extremism, and then you will collect weapons from all over the country in that place. And when you're asked to evict, you will start a fight, armed violence.
Al Mosque had links with Al-Qaeda since 1980s. The first ever suicide bombing in Pakistan in Islamabad was an Egyptian embassy bombing in mid-1995 or something, mid-90s, and was orchestrated by Ayman al-Zawahiri, who has written in his book so clearly about it. and the bombers stayed at that mosque at that time. That mosque was a refuge to all the Arabs who came to Pakistan.
परवेज़ मुशर्रफ का जब दौर आया तो उसने इस चीज़ को बुनियाद बनाया अपने जो मज़मूम मकासद को पूरा करने के लिए कि ये जो बहुत सारी जो इस्लामाबाद में मसाजिद बनी हुई हैं और मदारिस बने हुए हैं तो सब गैर कानूनी हैं, इनको गिराया जाए। और बहाना ये बनाया कि ये सिक्योरिटी रिस्क हैं, सड़कों के साथ हैं, ये सड़क के साथ है, वो सड़क के साथ है, इन सब को बिल्डोज किया जाए। उसके लिए 80 मसाजिद की लिस्टें जारी कर दी गई, जिनमें से 7 को सरे 10 गिरा दिया गया।
Right before the Lal Masjid incident, a very alarming thing happened. Was that a group of young men and women who were new recruits of the madrasa had started going out in Islamabad, and they had started acting as vice squads, moral policing. That's what they had started. That is alarming. And that too in a capital.
एक मस्जिद गिरी, बड़ा एहतजाज हुआ, असम्बली में एहतजाज हुआ, उलमा भी एहतजाज कर रहे थे। फिर दूसरी मस्जिद गिर गई, जहाँ करते करते 7 मसाजिद गिरी। तो यकीनन हमारे तलबा और तालिबात में भी एक शदीद रद्द अमल पैदा हुआ, और उस पर जब कोई और सूरत ना हुई तो एक रिएक्शन था उसका। उन्होंने साथ ही एक मॉडर्न लाइब्रेरी थी जिस पर कब्ज़ा किया, और कब्ज़े के अंदर अपने मुतालबात ये रखे कि भाई ये जो मसाजिद गिराई गई हैं ये मसाजिद बनाई जाए। और फिर दूसरे ये भी रखी गई कि ये सब वजूहात जो जन्म ले रही हैं यहाँ पर, जो मसाइलिस्तान पाकिस्तान बन रहा है, उसकी वजह यह है कि यहाँ इस्लामी निज़ाम नहीं है।
Madrasa, in my opinion, is a place where you give enlightenment and education to children. It's not a place where you teach them how to use weapons.
उस पर जब ये हुआ तो हुकूमत की तरफ से एक सख्त रद्द अमल आया कि हुकूमत ने एक सख्त एक्शन लिया कि उस पर लाल मस्जिद का ऑपरेशन उन्होंने चारों तरफ मुहासा करके शुरू हुआ, और एक बहुत बड़ा सानहा जो पाकिस्तानी तारीख़ का नहीं पूरी दुनिया की तारीख़ का एक सानहा बना।
You may find it on the internet. George Bush, after the event of Lal Masjid, he said that it was part of our strategy in war against terrorism, because he knew that the Pakistan army, when it was fighting the Mujahideen and tribesmen in Waziristan or other places, the army would not put their heart and soul into it, and they were not fighting the army as tenaciously as they were supposed to do, because both were talking about Allahu Akbar from one side, Allahu Akbar would come the reply from the other side. This side would say Pakistan Zindabad, they would also say Pakistan Zindabad. So they were not actually, because army was pressed into going there, it was their forced to go in there, but they didn't have their heart, because this was an artificial conflict as far as we were concerned. So they wanted to make it a real conflict.
The Lal Masjid raid had far-reaching repercussions, and it helped begin the Third Civil War in Waziristan, where 3,000 people lost their lives. It was one of the main reasons for hastening the fall of General Musharraf from power. Within 6 months of the Lal Masjid raid, Pakistani Islamic militants were able to assassinate the popular leader Benazir Bhutto, who had been democratically elected twice to serve as Pakistan's Prime Minister. Benazir had told General Musharraf that she might get killed by the militants a few months before her death.
The information that I could be attacked by a gang from the Afghan warlord Baitullah Masood, or by Hamza bin Laden, the son of Osama bin Laden, or by the Pakistani Taliban in Islamabad.
In 2011, the Islamic militants murdered Salman Taseer, the progressive, liberal and widely respected governor of Punjab. And then they took the life of Shahbaz Bhatti, the Christian minister in the central government. Both these men were vociferous against the excesses of Islamic fundamentalist violence.
The forces of violence, militant band organization, the Taliban and pro-Al-Qaeda, they want to impose their radical philosophy in Pakistan, and whoever stand against their radical philosophy, they threaten them.
Governor Punjab Salman Taseer was killed by a member of his own security guard detail who sympathized with the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and felt that Governor Salman Taseer should not have expressed sympathy and support with a Christian woman who has been jailed under the blasphemy law.
I believe in rule of law. Salman Taseer was the constitutional head of the biggest province in Pakistan. He himself broke the law. He had no authority to enter inside a jail and address a press conference with a convicted woman. And when he did that, some religious leaders, they tried to lodge a police complaint against him. But he was the constitutional head and nobody registered a case against him. When there was no case against him and the law became a joke in Punjab, so then another extremist, he took the law into his hands and he shot Salman Taseer.
Salman Taseer was not killed by a Wahhabi, he was killed by a Barelvi, sort of those people who are closer to the Sufism. And Salman Taseer is supposed to have said something or done something which they thought was against the honorable name of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I think they get enraged on this.
I think Salman Taseer's controversy was very unfortunate in that it created an impression as if he stood for amending the divine law. Nobody bothered to explain what he meant when he spoke about the case of Asia. Not even his party actually stood for him. And on that very unfortunate day, this man just picks up a gun and mows him down. You could call it the acme of militant explosion in Pakistan, or you could call it one of those very unfortunate incidents of the sort that you would find even in the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi.
Deliberate killing of minorities minister Shehbaz Bhatti, who was a Christian himself and president of the All Pakistan Minorities Alliance. Within 2 months of the killing of Punjab Governor Salman Taseer, also by the Taliban, has been sent a very clear message: cease and desist your efforts and your struggles and your movements.
Whither shall Pakistan turn to from here? Does a future of secular democracy have any chance of dawning in Pakistan? Its civil society is full of doubt and misgivings.
जब आप मज़हब के नाम पे मुल्क बनाएंगे तो जो मज़हब के नाम पे मुल्क बनेगा उसमें सब कुछ होगा. जब आप कहते हैं कि मुस्लिम है तो मुस्लिम लीग में आ, और पाकिस्तान का मतलब क्या, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, उसका मतलब यही है कि जनाब यहाँ आप मज़हब मौलवी की बदमाशी चलेगी. अब उसका नतीजा फिर यही निकलना था. और आगे आप देखिए, एक दिन आप बद से बदतर की तरफ जा रहे हैं. और ये मजहबी इंतहा पसंदों और मजहबी दहशतगर्दों की नर्सरी है ये पाकिस्तान.
The bigots, the Taliban, the Lashkars and Jihadi organization are #1 enemy of Pakistan, #1 enemy of Islam, #1 enemy of the Muslims, and #1 enemy above all the humanity at large.
आज ISI ना चाहे या आज फौज ना चाहे, इनमें से किसी मौलवी मुल्ला मौलाना की जुरत नहीं है हिम्मत कर, लेकिन ये सब उनकी आशीर्वाद से और उनको.
Our education budget is almost, I think, 1% of the national budget is education, and about 40% is defense. It's ridiculous. We don't need such a big armed forces. There's no threat to Pakistan. No country wants to attack Pakistan. I don't believe that it is India's interest that Pakistan should disappear. But if Pakistan disappears, they're the next target for extremists towards the west, northwest.
If democracy has to survive in Pakistan, it has to be a secular democracy, because democracy and religious, these are two different things. They can't go together.
I believe in democracy. I don't believe in secular democracy or the Islamic democracy. I believe in democracy. And the future of Pakistan lies in democracy. If there is no democracy, there will be no Pakistan.
असल में मौलवी ने सबसे बड़ा जुल्म जो हमारे यहाँ किया है वो ये है कि सेकुलर का तर्जुमा लादीन कर दिया है। सेकुलर का तर्जुमा लादीन नहीं, सेकुलर का तर्जुमा है अपना छोड़ो नहीं, दूसरे को छेड़ो नहीं। और सेकुलर का तर्जुमा ये है कि मेरी हद वहाँ ख़त्म हो जानी चाहिए जहाँ से आपकी नोज़ शुरू हो रही है। मौलवी ने सबसे बड़ा जुल्म जो किया है वो ये कि सेकुलर का तर्जुमा लादीन कर दिया। उसने सारे सिस्टम को तबाह व बर्बाद कर दिया। अपना कुछ दे नहीं सकते और जो है उसको तबाह करने पर तुले हुए हैं।
We feel that our country will only move forward if and when we decide that we want to remove religion from the business of the state. That is the only way I think Pakistan can move forward, and a lot of people feel like this. It's not only me saying, I mean a lot of people actually believe that secularism is the only answer.
Well, if Pakistan is to survive, it can only survive as a secular democracy. If it doesn't, at the moment I don't see secular democracy coming into being or taking shape in the near future.
As the situation stands right now, I like to be hopeful, but I'm not. Now, unless the youth of this country can really understand the meaning of secularism and try and understand that secularism does not necessarily have to clash with religion, and unless the people of this country can understand this, I don't see secularism having much of a future, at least in the coming years.
In the midst of fanatics, militants, terrorists, abductions and murders, life somehow goes on in Pakistan. Every Thursday and Friday, large crowds gather at the shrines of Sufis. Defying all threats and intimidation, they pray, sing and dance. As eternal night approaches, the dawn of a desired future. The elderly are beginning to lose hope, but many in the younger generation are hopeful about the future of secular democracy in Pakistan.
We need to be liberal basically, to understand everybody and understand the rights of other people too.
As far as democracy goes, that's very, very natural for every human being to demand, to have. And as far as the secularism goes, I personally feel that that too is very, very natural.
Now we are educated, therefore we are a little bit secular, we understand things in better way, we want development in our country, and we hope that we will make Pakistan much better.
Government alag hoti hai, religion alag hota. Religion is a very personal thing. It's a man to God relationship, not a man to government and government to God relationship. So government ko beech mein se nikalna chahiye, man to God rahe or man to government rahe. But